From Chicago's Lincoln Park to Florida's Intercoastal to Wisconsin's small town lakeside views, Monica Postell's artistic journey spans landscapes and bedscapes. Her palette is as diverse as her surroundings, and she's a self-taught painter, and she's not afraid to make waves with her artwork either. She's my guest today.
Winds of change blowing strong. Yesterday's gone, moving on. Embrace the new, spread your wings. Who knows what tomorrow brings?
And now let's welcome to the Career Pivots podcast, former instructional designer turned artist, Monica Postell.
Always remember that you possess the power to change your happiness.
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So where are you at now? You're in Wisconsin, right?
I am. I'm in Twin Lakes, Wisconsin.
Okay. So is that where you get your artistic inspiration these days in the summertime?
Well, interesting. I did an art show recently and I realized that so much of my art is from here. It's my garden. It's
Oh,
the vegetables and fruits that I buy. It's the light coming through in the afternoon.
the light is beautiful up there.
Inspiration.
I was
Good
up there
inspiration.
several years ago to visit you, and it's just a gorgeous little cottage. It really is.
Thank
So people are going to be interested in how you got into what you're doing. So you retired about 5 years ago, and
Long ago.
how did you decide, oh, I'm going to pick up a paintbrush and start painting some more again?
Well, I've always painted, but
Mhm.
my window of opportunity has always been pretty small because I've been working. So when I retired, I thought, well, this will be fun. I was into saying yes to everything. I was yes to vacations, yes to lunches with friends, yes to tennis. And why not? Why not pick up a paintbrush and start painting again? So it was a little awkward at first, but eventually the more I painted, and I painted every day, it came back. Yeah.
So does it kind of feel like a job though at this point again? I mean, some people might say, hey, you're retired, go have lunch with friends, just keep doing that stuff, and don't make this like another job. Or is it not that way for you?
Well, the work part isn't a job, but you can't take the entrepreneur out of the girl.
That's
So
true.
it wasn't enough to just paint, but I wanted to distribute my art in a lot of different ways. And so the merchandising side of it came into it. And then I was aligned to art storefronts, and the marketing side of it came back. And that, of course, was something that I was used to in the sales world and in the training world. But that part's work. That is taking my time, and it takes effort and it takes planning.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit work and it's a little bit fun.
Oh, good. Speaking about planning, you touched on an interesting point for an artist. With your artwork, where do you draw the line between planning a work and then letting creativity and spontaneity take over?
Good question. Oftentimes, I'm a very visual person, so I'll see something and it might be the light that's hitting it or the way that the whole scene looks, and that will be okay. I want to paint that. I want that mood. I want that feeling. And so I'll start painting, and then I'll see something that isn't quite working. And the beauty of being the artist is you can change it.
That's
You can
right.
change it. So that's really fun. It's a little mix of both.
Okay, so how do you know when an artwork is finished? My brother was a painter, and his children tell me the story of he used to have this huge painting of a lighthouse on the living room wall, and he'd put it up when it was finished, or so he thought, and he'd look at it the next day and like, no, I'm going to take it down and add some more. A week later, oh, I don't like that. I'm going to change it. So when is it finished?
It is a battle. It's a battle. For me, it's when I think I've captured the mood, I've captured the light, or it looks like what I want it to look like. So I have gone back. In fact, not too long ago, I started a painting and it was 2 onions in a still life. And I
Okay.
decided, I don't like that. And so it became 6 oranges in
Onions,
roughly the same
oranges.
place. Oh well, I had to change the light angle and things like
Mhm.
that. So I think part of becoming a full-time artist is learning what you can do. You have permission to do all sorts of things. You can
Mhm.
change things. You can embellish things. You can come back later and do something
Right.
different. It's part of what I love about it.
Yeah. And it's got to be great, a nice change from the corporate world because you kind of get out of your head, you're not in front of a computer, you're not writing, you're not playing with words, you're actually expressing in a completely different
Yeah.
way. So from that perspective, what has your art taught about you? What have you uncovered about yourself through your art that you may not have been aware of before?
Well, a lot of I was aware of. A little of perfectionism, a little impatience, I want it done. Part of the
Mhm.
reason that I work in watercolor and in acrylic is that they both dry fairly fast, and so I can work quickly.
Right.
People will say, well, how long does it take to do a painting? And I'll sheepishly say, oh, I don't know, a day or two.
Mhm.
Um, but I've learned that I can be patient and I can wait for something to dry so I can do a proper glaze, and that's really helped my paintings a lot, is recognizing that I can overcome my impatience. I can overcome my perfectionism. And one of the things that I learned, I was doing a little small um, picture of my garden, and it wasn't turning out. It just wasn't turning out. And so I turned it into an abstract. I just started slapping paint around and moving it around, and I loved it. I really, really, it wasn't my normal style, but this particular little work came out very, very well.
Now, you do a lot of still life. How did you determine, yes, I'm going to focus on still life as opposed to say, I don't know, portraits or beach scenes or well, a beach scene probably would be still life, but you get my point, more
Yeah.
so the fruits, vegetables, flowers, gardens, things like that.
Um, I think it was because they were there.
Oh, well, that makes
I
sense.
can
Paint what's in
always,
front of you.
exactly, exactly. Most of what you'll see is here. I'll walk out into the garden and I'll paint a flower, or I'll see my very first tomatoes and painted those. The beauty of a still life is that you get to put together the form of the
Mhm.
painting. So you, if you wanted to flow a particular way, or you wanted to be hit by light in a particular way,
Mhm.
a still life
Ah,
versus plein air, you have to pretty much paint what's
right.
there
Yeah.
and use the light that's there. Now, sure,
Yeah.
you can change that too, but it seems to me I have more control, another subtext here, of my work by being able to set up.
Control and Monica, no.
No.
I know you too well. And and the other thing about painting still life is an orange isn't going to complain that, hey, that doesn't look like me.
Off. No, 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 no.
So, again, you could have done this as a hobby. Why did you turn it into a business in retirement?
Can't help myself.
Can't help yourself.
I just,
Okay.
it's, if it's worth doing, it's worth making money. If it's worth doing, it's
I like
worth
that.
using the tools that are out there.
Mhm.
Part of it, I've always liked to learn new things. And so there's so much new now that you can do that I incorporate into this new career.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
AI,
exciting.
though.
Pardon me?
Not AI,
Now,
though.
since you brought it up, let's talk about that. I know like some artists embrace it, like David Hockney, he has been known to do like iPad art. I went down to his exhibit at the Art Institute on his iPad art. And 2 years ago, he actually did his own AI art, which I thought was really weird.
Well, that's what
What's
I've heard other artists have tried. It's just makes me uncomfortable that they would scrape off my art and then make it into something else and say that I did it.
Yeah. And so, what is being done in the art world to protect artists like yourself?
I think baby steps. I've recently heard that a major platform is going to be scraping all of our art. Do I know that that's true? I don't. So I'm hopeful that
Mhm.
steps are being taken to protect actual art, live, real painted with your hand art.
Yes.
There are a couple of platforms that are now claiming to be protective and let you put your art up and not have to worry about somebody scraping it off. But who's going there? Does it have the
Right.
sort of viewership that the existing platforms have? So
Right.
I don't
And even
know.
if a company, licenses with another big organization to say, okay, these artists will get compensated for their work. Well, another company could completely rip you off and not be part of that. So it's hard to really manage that and track that, I would imagine.
Or even know that it's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. How do you find that? So given that, let's say there's somebody close to retirement or even somebody not near retirement who just says, I'm tired with the corporate world. I have art skills. I want to become an artist. Given the environment with AI that, oh my God, everything is going to be stolen pretty soon, or people won't see a need for art from artists because, oh, I can have AI generate something for me. What advice do you give to people who might be considering going into an art venture, entrepreneurial venture?
I think you have to follow your heart. If you're not passionate about it, if you don't love doing it, you're not going to have a business. You're not going to have really a career.
Mhm.
But if you do love it, do it.
Okay.
And hopefully things will fall into place. There are lots of companies out there now that are doing support for artists who are maybe not as business oriented, because let's face it, many of us aren't.
Right.
I happen to come from a strong business background, but even I am loath to do some of the things that my marketing team says I should be doing. So I think that the passion has to be there. You really have to want to learn and want to paint. And part of it is learning new techniques, maybe going into different media. The sky's the limit if you really love it.
Mm-hmm. Is there, and this is going to be the question everybody's going to have on their mind, is there income potential there? I mean, viable income potential, not like $50 a month potential.
Well, it takes a while to build it. I certainly am not there. I'm still, penny pinching, but it takes a while to build it up.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ways of doing it. There are ways of expanding your audience, building your collectors, getting curators to pick you up. But it's not going to happen to everyone.
Right.
It just isn't.
Well, just
So,
like writing or anything else,
yeah, right, exactly. So I
Okay.
said, go for it, try it. And you never know. It's a lot of it is finding a niche, some group of collectors that really love your art or love
Mm-hmm.
your subject matter. And that's tricky. I've been struggling with it. I mean, who's into vegetables? It's something that we all have to work on and find the proper niche and be flexible enough to say, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see if there's anybody in the world that's interested in XYZ.
And speaking of finding your niche, in the writing world, there's this philosophy called write to market. In other words, if you want to be a successful novelist, don't just write in your genre. Let's say it's cozy mysteries. You have to write to the market. The market is rich cowboy cozy mystery or whatever it would happen to
Yeah.
be. So what do you advise with that, with the art world, with the painting world? Do you paint to market? In other words, let's see what's really hot right now in the market, and then I'm going to adjust my painting to meet that market? Or do you kind of stick to your own, no, this is what I do, this is my style, and I'm sticking with it?
Such a multi-layered question.
I know, me.
My advice has been to find that niche. Go out and find the niche and paint to the niche. So maybe paint a picture or two to a particular market that you think you can appeal to, that's big enough and rich enough to be able to afford and want art. So there is definitely a push towards that. But the stubborn person in my heart says, I'm going to paint what I want.
Right.
When I'm dead, maybe somebody will like it.
Yeah, all the famous artists who became famous after they died,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
How much of your art is for you right now? Meaning, the entrepreneurial part, the income part, the artistic expression part, and how much of it is for your legacy?
Ooh, I do think of that once in a while, just once in a while.
Just once in a while.
But-
Don't think too much about it.
No, I don't. I also think about my cousin having to clean out all of the boxes of paintings.
That's their problem.
That's right, right. It's in the will. You have to have a show.
Right.
So I don't think a whole lot about it as legacy. I primarily am enjoying myself painting what I see.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's important to do too, but I think the great thing about art is it does leave a legacy because, I have some friends who are very wealthy and they have artistic talent. They could do it, but they choose not to. They're like, too much like work. I'm just going to give my money to a foundation or something. And I'm like, that's great. But, and we need those kinds of people, but it's like, yeah, what are you really contributing, of
Mhm.
yourself? Because it's easy to write a check. It's not as easy to paint or to write a book or to do whatever your art is.
True. Very
So
true.
I always, am impressed with people who, such as yourself, take the initiative to, I'm just going to do this. I don't care what the world thinks. This is me and I'm going to do it and have fun with it. So any other pieces of advice you would give to somebody who might want to try to step into the art world, whether for an entrepreneurial venture or for a hobby?
Mm-hmm. Paint every day. It really does make a difference. You wouldn't think so, but it really does. Explore different media. Take a class. You might be really good. You might be an excellent drawer, be able to quickly whip off a beautiful drawing, but you can still learn something from other people. And I found that in a class I went with some people to paint watercolors and do that sort of thing. And I didn't like the teacher,
Okay.
but I wanted to go where she was going. So I went, and lo and behold, I did learn something new, learned a different technique. Will I ever use it again? Well, maybe not, but it was interesting, and I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a funny story of another artist friend of mine, Susie Farron. She went to a training course and she absolutely hated the instructor. And Susie does things her own way. She doesn't take direction well. I'll just put it that way. And she will be the first one to admit that. And it's like, so the instructor kept coming around saying, no, that's not right. You should do it like this. You should do it like this. And she's like, screw it. I'm going to do it the way I want. Lo and behold, she now has had several gallery shows in the St. Louis area where she's made a lot of money because she did it her own way. So I think there's benefit in learning technique. And, it's about like an ice skater. You have to learn how to do a proper figure 8 before you can go do the triple axel. But once you learn those basics, you add your own artistic flair to the interpretation of the music or the theme or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So important.
So what's your goal, your next goal? I know you, I've known you for years. You're a goal setter. So I know you have goals. So what are some of your next goals?
Well, I've decided to go and do some art fairs, face to face. Always been my jam.
Okay.
So I decided to do 2 up north and then 2 in the Florida area.
Okay.
And so far, the very first art fair that I did was more than what I expected. I came in with very moderate expectations, and they were all blown out of the water. So I chose a smaller show in a region or a neighborhood that I knew that people would have some money to buy. And I'd heard good things about the traffic and that sort of thing. So not only did I learn what I should have as a booth and what I should have as my walls and how to hang my paintings with less effort than what I did myself. But I saw so many people and I talked to so many people, and I found out just in, yammer, that there is a story behind every single one of my paintings. And people are interested in those stories, which I loved. So my next goal is to expand to more within my budget, because they're expensive to get into. There's the booth rental and there's the application, and there's the getting there and the setting up. There's a lot to it.
Mhm.
So I don't want to just say, oh, I'm going to do 10,
Right.
because no, I won't, or I'll be broke. But I'm going to slowly expand, learn from each of the shows, apply what I've learned, and see whether it's worth going forward, which I kind of think it is, because face-to-face and selling originals is a lot easier for me than being online.
Yeah. Yeah. And art is such a personal thing, and you almost have to experience it in real time. It's just me, I'm old fashioned. Speaking of
Atta
the
girl.
story, speaking of the stories behind your paintings, which painting tells the most interesting story, and what is that story?
Hmm.
I know I'm kind of throwing a curveball at you here, but since you mentioned the stories, I thought that was
Yes.
interesting.
Right. So most people were drawn into the booth for the color that was in the florals and the vegetables.
Ah.
One of the other stories was the kids that I do. So granted, they're all family. I
Mhm.
don't just paint random people. But the painting behind me is sitting on the dock, and it's actually from a reference photo from the early aughts, probably. I mean, these kids were not very old. They are now, this little girl is the mother of 5.
Oh my
And
God.
this little guy is a pilot for Delta Airlines and has a new baby as well. So
Oh,
I love the feeling. I can feel the heat on my back. We were sitting at the end of the day with the water lapping up on the pier, and it was just quintessential summer in Twin Lakes.
wow.
And I love the fact that these kids now have these kids.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's great having those juxtaposed like that.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And then, of course, all the beds, the unmade
Yes,
beds.
tell me about the bed story. Everybody's talking about the bed stories.
So I don't know if you can see. All right. So
Yes. Mhm.
that is in Michigan. A friend
Okay.
of mine has a absolutely gorgeous place in Michigan. All looks like it's been in the family for 200 years. And I always choose this particular bedroom because I just love it. And the first painting that I did was of my bedroom in Florida. And I had come in, I'm a bed maker. I make my bed before I get out of bed. But for whatever reason, I hadn't that day. And the sheets, the white linen, everything with the sun coming in made these wonderful patterns. And I thought, gosh, that's kind of interesting. So I painted it. And I didn't do anything more with beds for quite some time. But when I retired, I started thinking of all the interesting beds that I've napped in or slept in. And that's the rule. I have to have actually slept in the bed. It doesn't count
Oh,
if I haven't slept in the bed. So this is upstairs in the
oh,
upstairs sleeping loft. These 2 paintings are Degas prints that used to be in my mom's dressing room. So there's things in
oh.
all of the paintings that I just love. The linoleum,
Uh-huh.
1940,
Yeah.
it's great. So all of the beds so far have been, there's one from Switzerland, there's one from Lake of the Ozarks. They're from all over the country, any place that I have laid my little head. And
Aw.
they make an interesting, one of my friends said, yes, you've now made not making your bed an artwork. So all the children out there.
Yeah, we don't have to make beds because
I'm making art,
unmade beds
Mom.
are art. Oh, that's
Exactly.
hilarious. Well, Monica, this has been so much fun, and it's been
Yeah.
great catching up with you. And I think you're a great inspiration for a lot of people out there who may be wondering, well, I paint, I write, I sketch, whatever. And it might just be the inspiration they need to take it to the next level for themselves.
Hope so. That would be so nice.
Yes.
We'll
Well,
do it.
thank you. Have a good one.
Ça c'est bon.